Resident Evil 1. Developed by Capcom and directed by Shinji Mikami, it dropped players into a mansion full of zombies with almost no explanation and very little ammunition. The fixed camera angles, the slow movement, and the limited saves created a kind of tension that felt genuinely dangerous. It was inspired partly by a Famicom game called Sweet Home, and partly by Alone in the Dark, but it took those ideas further and made survival horror a real genre. The story follows members of a special police unit called STARS, who are sent to investigate disappearances in the Arklay Mountains and end up trapped inside a research facility run by the Umbrella Corporation. What made it matter was the atmosphere. The mansion felt lived in and wrong at the same time, and every door you opened could mean death. Resident Evil 2. This 1998 sequel moved the horror out of the isolated mansion and into Raccoon City itself, a full urban environment now completely overrun. You played as Leon Kennedy, a rookie cop on his first day, or Claire Redfield, looking for her brother Chris. The game used a system where both characters had separate but interlocking campaigns that affected each other. That alone was ambitious for its time. The city setting made everything feel larger and more hopeless, and the introduction of the tyrant, known as Mr. X, who stalked you through the police station without warning, added a new kind of dread. The 2019 remake brought the game back with modern graphics and over-the-shoulder gameplay, and it worked so well that many people consider it one of the best remakes ever made. Resident Evil 3. Released in 1999, just a year after the second game, this one followed Jill Valentine trying to escape Raccoon City just before and during the outbreak shown in RE2. The defining feature was Nemesis, a creature specifically programmed to hunt STARS members and equipped with a rocket launcher. Unlike Mr. X, Nemesis could follow you between areas, which forced you to keep moving. The game introduced a dodge mechanic and more action compared to its predecessors, which divided some players at the time. It also showed more of the city and expanded the story of Umbrella's experiments. The 2020 remake was more polarizing than RE2's, cutting content that fans remembered, but the core chase and survive experience carried through. Resident Evil Code Veronica. This 2000 release is sometimes overlooked because it launched on the Dreamcast rather than PlayStation, but it was considered by Capcom to be the true sequel to RE2. Claire Redfield is captured by Umbrella and sent to a prison island, and the story eventually brings in Chris as well. It was the first game in the series to use real-time 3D environments instead of pre-rendered backgrounds, which was a significant technical step. The villain, Alexia Ashford, has one of the more elaborate backstories in the series, and the game takes the story into more operatic, melodramatic territory than the earlier entries. It matters because it ties up the Redfield sibling storyline and sets up the conflict with Wesker in a more direct way. Resident Evil 4. This 2005 entry is arguably the most influential game in the series and one of the most influential action games ever made. Leon returns, now working as a government agent sent to rural Spain to rescue the president's daughter. The fixed cameras are gone. The game shifted to an over-the-shoulder third-person view that put the action directly in the player's hands. Enemies were no longer slow zombies, but fast, coordinated villagers infected with something called Las Plagas, a parasite rather than a virus. The pacing, the enemy design, the upgrade system, and the overall feel became a template that dozens of games copied over the following decade. It saved the series commercially and creatively after a period of declining interest, and the 2023 remake proved the design still holds up completely. Resident Evil 5. Set in Africa in 2009, this game paired Chris Redfield with a new partner named Sheva Alomar and leaned heavily into cooperative gameplay. The story dealt with the origins of the series' bioweapons and brought back Albert Wesker for a final confrontation. It was one of the best-selling entries in the franchise. The shift toward action was even more pronounced than in RE4, and the game drew criticism for the difficulty of playing alone, since the AI partner could be unreliable. It was also controversial for its imagery, placing a white protagonist in an African setting fighting infected African villagers. Capcom maintained the intent was not racial, but the conversation around it continued for years. As a co-op experience with a friend, the game works well, and the boss fights are memorable. Resident Evil 6. This 2012 release tried to be everything at once and suffered for it. 4 separate campaigns followed Leon, Chris, Jake Muller, and Ada Wong across multiple global locations, dealing with multiple bioterror outbreaks simultaneously. The ambition was real, but the execution was uneven. Each campaign had a different tone, and almost a different genre, ranging from survival horror to military shooter to spy thriller, and none of them felt fully developed. It was criticized for losing the identity of the series entirely. It sold well initially, but disappointed long-term. Looking back, some players have found things to appreciate in it, but at the time, it represented a low point for what the franchise stood for. Resident Evil 7. The 2017 entry was a deliberate reset. Capcom moved to a first-person perspective, reduced the cast to almost nothing, and set the game in a decaying Louisiana farmhouse. You play as Ethan Winters, an ordinary man searching for his missing wife, who encounters the Baker family, a group transformed and controlled by a new type of mold-based organism. The shift to first-person made the horror feel immediate again, in a way the series had not managed in years. The game took clear inspiration from PT, the canceled Silent Hills demo, and from films like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It reconnected the franchise with its roots without copying what came before. The connection to the wider RE universe comes late and unexpectedly, and it works better for being saved. Resident Evil Village. Released in 2021, this direct sequel to RE7 kept the first-person view and brought Ethan Winters back, this time searching for his kidnapped daughter in a remote European village. Where RE7 was claustrophobic and grim, Village was more theatrical and varied. Each section of the map was controlled by a different lord, each with a distinct visual and horror style, and the game moved between them with a confidence that kept players engaged. Lady Dimitrescu, the tall vampire noblewoman, became a cultural moment almost immediately after the game was revealed. The story escalated in scale significantly from the previous entry, and closed out Ethan's arc in a way that divided fans, but left the narrative somewhere genuinely new. It also introduced Rose Winters and pointed the series toward its next chapter.